All right, these are the notes for section 4.2. Now, this is a lot of working with polynomials here. These are kind of the basics. So first, adding polynomials. Well, when you add, all you're really doing is combining like terms. So you just go through and say, okay, I have 2x cubed and x cubed, so 3x cubed. I have an x squared and a 7x squared, 8x squared. I have a negative 3x and no x over here, so negative 3x. And I have a positive 4 and a negative 2 plus 2. And that's your answer. Same way with this one, just combining like terms. I have a negative 4y cubed. There's no other y cubed, so it's negative 4y cubed. I have a 2y squared and another y squared, so 3y squared. I have a negative y and a negative 6y. That's a negative 7y. And I have a 2 and a positive 9. That's 11. That's all you do adding, just combine like terms. Subtracting is very similar. One thing you might do when you subtract, it's easy to forget you're subtracting, so you might distribute this negative through all of these. So if you distribute, that's a negative 5x cubed. That becomes a positive 4x squared, a positive 3x, and a negative 1. So you might change all those signs. You don't have to do it that way if you could remember to subtract, but that might eliminate making a little mistake. If you do that, then it's just combining like terms. So we have a 3x cubed and a negative 5x cubed. That's a negative 2x cubed. We have a 5x squared and a 4x squared, 9x squared. We have a negative x and a positive 3x. That's plus 2x. We have a positive 8 and a negative 1 plus 7. Same with this one. If you want to distribute the negative, that makes this a negative 7x squared, and that changes this to a positive. This should be an x, not a z, a positive 4x. Then you just combine like terms. I'm sorry, that should be a z. I'm sorry, I changed the wrong one, excuse me. This one should be a z. This one still is an x, or so it still is a z. Sorry, that needs to be a z. So now if we combine like terms, we have a 5z squared and a negative 7z squared. That's a negative 2z squared. We have a negative z, no other z's, so a negative z. I'm sorry, I forgot this one. It's a z. So negative z plus 4z is 3z. I'll get this right eventually. And then I have a plus 3. Now multiplying. Of course, some of these are going to take a little longer. If you have a single term times a whole polynomial, you just multiply the 2x squared times each one. So take it times 2x cubed, that's going to be 4x. Remember, when you multiply, you add exponents. So that's 4x to the 5th. Then we multiply this one, that's going to be a negative 2. And then for the exponents, 2 plus 2 is 4. Then we do this one. 2 times 3 is 6. X squared times x is x to the 3rd. And the last one, negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10, x squared. All right. This one, now we're multiplying a trinomial because there's 3 terms times a binomial. You can do it whichever order you want. I would start with the smaller one, that's just me. So I would take x times 2x squared, so that's 2x cubed. I take x times a negative 3x, that's a negative 3x squared. And I take x times 5, that's 5x. Then I do the same thing with the negative 2. Take negative 2 times 2x squared, that's a negative 4x squared. A negative 2 times a negative 3x is a plus 6x. And negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. Now we just combine like terms. I tried to write them so they lined up just so it would be easier to combine. You don't have to do it that way, but 2x cubed, negative 3 and a negative 4 is a negative 7x squared. 5x and 6x is 11x. and then in minus 10. Now they can get a lot longer. Like here, you're multiplying two trinomials, so you got to do a lot more. So we're going to take x to the fourth times all three of these. So x to the fourth times 3x squared, that's 3x, and then for the exponent, 4 plus 2 is 6. X to the fourth times a negative 6x, that's a negative 6. X to the fourth times x is x to the fifth. And then x to the fourth times negative 1 is a negative x to the fourth. Then you take a negative 10x squared times all three of those. So negative 10x squared times 3x squared, that's going to be a negative 30 x to the fourth. So I'm going to write it under this one. And we take it times a negative 6x, that's going to be negative 10 times negative 6 is 60 x to the third. Then we take it times the negative 1, that'll be a positive 10 x squared. Then you do the same thing with the 25. We take it times all three. So 25 times 3x squared is 75x squared. 25 times a negative 6x is a negative 150x. And 25 times a negative 1 is a negative 25. Now we combine like terms, so we have 3x to the sixth. We have a negative 6x to the fifth. We have a negative 31x to the fourth. We have a 60x cubed. Here we have an 85x squared, a negative 150x, and a negative 25. So we got a big long thing there. Now this next one, we're multiplying three binomials together. So when you do that, you can do it different ways. Probably the best way is pick two of them and multiply those together. Like let's say I pick these two. Let's see, 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times a negative 5x is a negative 30x. And negative x times 4 is a negative 4x. So we combine those, that's a negative 34x. And then we still have negative x times a negative 5x is plus 5x squared. Well, now we're going to take that times 2x minus 3. So we take 2x times all these. So 2x times 24 is 48x. 2x times a negative 34 is a negative 68x squared. And 2x times 5x squared is 10x cubed. Then we're going to take a negative 3 times all these. Well, 3 times 24 is a negative 72. Negative 3 times a negative 34 is a negative 102, a positive 102x. And negative 3 times 5 is a negative 15x squared. Then we combine like terms. So we have a 10x cubed. I'm just going to switch the order, so I put them in descending order, but it doesn't really matter. If I add these two, that's a negative 83x squared. If I add these two, that's 150x. And then I have the negative 72. Now this one's easier, thank goodness. This next one, we're just multiplying two binomials. When we multiply, if I take 3y times 3y, that's 9y squared. If I take 3y times 8, that's 24y. Now if I go negative 8 times 3y, that's a negative 24y. And negative 8 times negative 8 is negative 64. Well, now when you combine like terms, I get 9y squared. These cancel out, and I get minus 64. Whenever there are two binomials are matching except the middle signs change, that middle term always cancels out. The last one's again a little more work. See, this one is cubed, so it times itself 3 times. So let's start by taking it times itself once. So if we multiply this there, that's going to be 4r squared. Here we're going to have a negative 2r, and another negative 2r is a negative 4r. And then here we're going to have a positive 1. So that's what we get there. Now we have to multiply by 2x minus 1 again. Well, now if we take 2x times all 3 of those, or 2r, maybe we write these down. So 2r times 4r squared is 8r cubed. 2r times a negative 4r is a negative 8r squared. And 2r times 1 is 2r. Then we take a negative 1 times all those. Negative 1 times 4r squared is a negative 4r squared. Negative 1 times a negative 4r is a plus 4r. And negative 1 times 1 is a negative 1. Now we combine like terms. 8r cubed, negative 12r squared, plus 6r minus 1. They did have, if you notice on the top of this page, it showed you there's sort of a shortcut for cubing. This is a binomial, so it'd be like this one here. So you take the first term cubed. Well, we did that. 2r cubed, and we got 8r cubed. Then it's minus 3 times the first one squared times the second one. Anyway, there's a pattern there you can use, or you can just multiply it out this way. Whichever you choose to use is fine. And that's it for 4.2.